Hi, my name's John Tisbury.
And I'm Joceline Brooke-Hamilton.
And Jocelyn and I are here today to talk to you about working with models. We thought it'd be a good idea to talk about what works well from both our perspectives, both as a photographer and obviously Jocelyn from a model's perspective.
Yeah.
Another one which a lot of photographers ask me around is about direction and how much direction do I give to models? Do models need direction? And I guess there's no black and white easy answer to that. It really does depend on the model. Jocelyn, from your perspective, what works for you?
I like being directed. I love being given a little freedom to sort of investigate an idea, try different things. I certainly don't need to be micro-directed, but I appreciate that sometimes the light is so specific that I need to be, so it's totally fine. I think the only time it's ever uncomfortable for me is if someone just keeps saying, no, that looks wrong, no, that looks silly, no, that looks wrong. That's tricky, but that's a very rare thing. I think if you keep your direction positive, then it's never going to have a negative effect on the model. It's always extra information that you as a model can use.
Yeah. It is a difficult decision, really. I think too much direction breaks the flow of the session. It makes it very staccated, if you like. You don't get that fluid movement between poses and what have you. It becomes very mechanical, I guess.
It can become a little mechanical. You're probably right if you really are fixating. I think if you're trying to get something incredibly specific, it's always more helpful just to show the model like an example, sketch or photograph or something, rather than try, as you said, to move your finger. Yeah, that's tricky to take.
Yeah, and it obviously does depend on the model, doesn't it? I think if you work with a model regularly, then you know what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
If it's the first time you've worked with that model, then you probably just have to gauge what works, for you both, really.
Yeah.
And I think you soon understand that once you're 20 minutes in, you realise that you're going to have to direct this model a little bit more than you would, say, a different model.
And the better you know each other, probably the less direction needs to happen because you're on the same wavelength more comfortably.
Yeah, you know each other's style and what. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Good call. So the simple answer, there's no black and white answer for it. There's no right or wrong, and it is really see what works. But, you can over-direct, I think, is really what we're saying. And the next one is a fun one, actually. I've titled it as Props Are Your Friend.
Yes.
I find from a model's perspective, and I'm taking your job over now.
Do it.
Sorry.
Tell me what it's like to be a model, John.
So I've got lots of experience. Props really, really help. And they allow a model to express themselves in completely different avenues and perspectives and areas that without that prop you would never venture into. I'm going to let you talk now.
I love props because, for me at least, and I don't know if this is entirely typical for models, I always approach modelling jobs as playing a character. And having a prop as simple as a hat or a piece of fabric or some shoes, it always suggests a character to me, and that will affect the way I pose, which means that the poses I will do with that prop are going to suggest something really different from what I would have done without that prop. And it really helps you just keep changing gear during the shoot to keep giving me different things to play with. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's one that not many people go down that route, and I think probably more people should, because it's surprising what a good model can do with a simple prop. Yeah,
that's very true. Be it a small piece of material or whatever. So my props tend to be a bit more fetishy, so it's a crop or a pair of handcuffs or something like that. But they don't have to be elaborate, I guess is the point we're trying to make. And also, don't be afraid to reuse a prop. I've got loads of props that I've kept from when I started doing photography, and if I give a prop to a model, it's very, very rare they'll use it exactly the same as a previous model. And then some of the ideas are just completely out of the box that you've never even thought of yourself. So I'm not too prescriptive on use of props in terms of what I'd want someone to do with it. I say, here's a prop, have a play with that. As a sort of opening line. And that allows your model's creativity to really flourish and blossom. it then doesn't give you that sort of narrow blinkered vision of, oh, I've used this prop before and this is how I've used it. So yes, if you're not a prop person, then suggest you have a look and invest in those. And they don't have to be expensive. Car boot sales are great places for finding props.
You might already have something in your house that you can use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good shout. Good shout. It can be basically anything from a chair through to something that the model holds. Props are your friend. So our next one is talking about playing music in the background.
Lovely.
I'm a great believer of having some music on in the background. I find it just helps sort of break that silence that can sometimes happen when it's like no one's chatting and it becomes a little bit awkward. A bit of music in the background just sort of breaks that and it gives a nice ambience. If you're very organised, you can ask your model what type of music they like and have that playlist all sort of organised. I know some of the models, because I've worked with them a lot, I know the type of music they like, so some of them like heavy metal, some of them like Rush, the band, and that's all I'll play. And you're onto a winner really as soon as they step in the door and that's playing. It sets the right ambience for the shoot. What's your feelings on music?
I love it when photographers play music, and actually not many people do, because I think a lot of people just haven't considered how helpful it might be. Because I think for me it does two things. One, it stops us from ending up talking about stuff that's not relevant to the shoot, so it kind of keeps you on topic. And the other thing it does is I find that as every track changes, it changes the way I pose. I suppose in part that might be because I've got a dance background, but I think for most of us it kind of gives you a bit of energy. It again suggests maybe storylines or ideas for how you should express yourself. So I find every time the track changes, I change gear, I give you something slightly different, and it stops me from falling into doing similar poses over and over again. So personally, I love it.
Yep, and I would sort of echo that really. The feedback I've had from all the models I've worked with over the years is music is very, very helpful. So if you can, I'd recommend it. Next one is a bit of a sticky one really. It's one that I see a lot in forums, a lot of new photographers talk about it and are concerned about it, and that's about touching the model.
Yeah.
Is it okay to touch the model? There's some sort of parameters on this. There's one end of the spectrum of using a stick and not getting anywhere near the model, probably not right, to full-on groping, definitely not right. So there's a happy medium in the middle there. I think it's all about common sense really for me. I think about it of like if you're in a normal work situation, like if you work in an office or something like that, and a work colleague there has got something on their shirt or on their jumper or what have you, and you'll say to them, oh, you've got something on your jumper, do you mind, I'll just pick it off. So that's how I would take that approach. So ask first and then act. And if you think about it, majority of, if you're certainly doing nude photography, the model, not the photographer, if you're doing nude photography, then that's probably a little bit more intimidating for a model, or can be, because you're encroaching on their personal space. And again, if you've not worked together before, that can be, the model will be unsure of your intentions. What's your feeling on that?
Well, it is interesting because I agree with you. I've seen a lot of especially new photographers clearly getting very worried about it, because certainly sometimes it's just really helpful to be able to move something on the model, because I can't necessarily see how my hair is falling or whatever. So I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to sometimes feel it would be convenient to do. And personally, I am not a model who has ever minded that happening. I agree with you, it's great if someone warns you what they're doing first, because otherwise you can just suddenly have someone lunging into your personal space for no reason that you can understand. I would like to reassure especially new photographers that professional models, especially who are used to being in a studio one-to-one with a photographer, we will notice the difference between someone doing something appropriate, like moving our hair to make a shot look better, and someone trying to sneakily grope us. We won't mistake one for the other, and although you might feel concerned that we will, we really won't. So if you are acting appropriately, we will respond to that. So I would just like to reassure people that, touching the model is a perfectly appropriate thing to do as long as you check first.
Perfect. Draw a line under that one. Perfect. But it is a big worry, isn't it? A lot of
Yeah.
people are concerned about that, and quite rightly so. So if you're concerned about it, that's our understanding and our experience on that. Our last one to chat about is don't flog an idea, as I've called it. And what I mean by that is if you set up a particular scene or a concept or an idea and you're shooting along nice and merrily, I will probably do 30, maybe 40 images on that before then moving on to something else. So I'm a fairly short number of images, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say. A couple of reasons for that really is that one, I find that digital can make people lazy or trigger happy, whichever way you want to look at it. It's very easy to shoot off 100, 200 images on a set. But I look at it from a perspective of how many images am I actually going to use. From a set, I'll probably use 2, 3, maybe 4, and that'll be it. You know, unless I'm selling sets, different output really, but for individual print images, for portfolio, exhibitions and for selling prints, yeah, I'd expect 3 or 4 out of a set. And once I've got those, that's it. It seems pointless to me carrying on just in case we might get lucky and get another one. Because, you know, it's just it becomes a lack of return basically on investment in time. So that's my feeling on it. What's yours?
I think I would certainly agree with you that probably the age of digital has allowed people to be quite indisciplined with how many pictures they'll take of something. And although I am happy to keep posing for a long time doing the same concept, I'm aware that probably eventually I'm going to be repeating myself and not really adding extra value. And I think that by being disciplined about how many pictures you take, it forces you to direct the model. Whereas I think sometimes people think, well, each frame it's free really, it's not costing me anything to develop, so I'll just wait and eventually Joceline will do every pose under the sun and I'll get what I want. Whereas if you're only going to shoot 50 shots, you're going to have to tell me what you want me to do, and I think that's very good. The other thing I'd probably say is to tell the model how many pictures you're aiming to get, because if I know I'm working with you and we're trying to get 3 perfect ones, I'll pose slightly differently from if you need to get 50 for a set that you're going to sell. And it's really useful for me to have that information because it means I can tailor what I do to suit the product.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good point. And what's the output for? Yeah, okay, good shout. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. Joceline and Mai's thoughts and experience as a photographer and a professional model. So yeah, do tune back in again and see us on our next session, our next video.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye.